To Canberra now, where the federal government says it's confident its $11 billion mining tax will pass the lower house. But it might not be tonight, with the Greens still to sign up to the amendments negotiated with the independents. If it does pass, Julia Gillard will no doubt claim it as another milestone in her self-proclaimed year of decision and delivery. Both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader made their final pitches to their party rooms today, and needless to say, their respective takes on the year in politics were pretty different. Here's political editor Chris Uhlmann.
The last of the headline international acts is touring. Crown Prince Frederik and Princess Mary of Denmark received a traditional welcome in Canberra. And a less orthodox one.
And just a gentle word for Her Highness Mary. She has given all the young women in this land a second breath that may be out there is this amazing Prince Charming. And he's waiting for her.
It's not just a princess that the two countries share. There's an eerie echo in the strains of the anthems. The tones have heralded Julia Gillard at 3 weeks of international events, which have shown her in a more flattering prime ministerial light. Opinion polls don't measure the vibe around the leaders, or that most precious of political commodities, momentum.
Can I say to the opposition that your relentless negativity,
The Prime Minister will resume.
With success on the world stage, the carbon tax passed, and a win on the mining tax looming, the Prime Minister is finally swimming with the political tide, and she appears to be growing in confidence. This is how she dealt with the question of not telling the Foreign Minister that she would push to overturn Labor's policy on uranium sales to India.
I made that decision, I viewed it as a leader's call, and I took it.
Julia Gillard thanked Labor's caucus today for its courage and resolution through a long year. She said it had proved perseverance pays and listed the party's achievements, saying the year had lived up to her declaration that it would be one of decision and delivery. She pointed to the rude health of the economy and the jobs that had been created.
More than 700,000 created since the government first came to office.
The churlish might argue that the government's border protection plans are in tatters and its polling is still dire, but there are signs that Labor is beginning to box the opposition leader into a corner.
The facts don't change no matter how many times you say no. The facts don't change no matter how relentlessly negative you are.
Labor today released a booklet to hammer home its favourite theme about Tony Abbott.
The voters have come to understand that the opposition leader is a one-trick Tony, that he says no, 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 no and no.
By almost any measure, Tony Abbott has had the better of this year. He told his joint party room today that the community saw the government as wasteful and incompetent, and Julia Gillard's perceived recent improvement was the result of her stalking world leaders in search of a photo opportunity.
Julia Gillard's had the benefit of rubbing shoulders with the glitterati in recent times, but whilst that has been of benefit to her, I think the Australian people are capable of seeing past that, and it is still the policies that are of a problem to Labor, and that's reflected in the polls.
But as the finish line nears, some of Tony Abbott's compromises and paintovers are beginning to become evident, and some in his party are getting restless. He was questioned today by 2 Liberal Party members over how he arrived at his recent decision to oppose the mining tax, yet support an increase in the superannuation levy. Some say he isn't listening and allowing the National Party too much of a free rein.
Or maybe it was August or September.
The task Tony Abbott has set himself is large, and he now clearly feels the need to address the jibe that he is relentlessly negative.
We will deliver personal income tax cuts and a fairer deal for pensioners without a carbon tax. We will deliver some company tax cuts without a mining tax. This will require significant cuts to government spending. which won't be easy but are achievable and will be spent out in detail in good time before the next election. Since becoming opposition leader, I've said no to a carbon tax because I say yes to affordable power. I've said no to a mining tax because I say yes to investment and jobs in our strongest industry. I've said no to mandatory pre-commitment for poker machines because I say yes to more effective counselling and yes to a less intrusive nanny state.
The opposition leader's keen to paint the government's mid-year economic statement, due in the next fortnight, as a sign of poor economic management.
A crisis mini-budget is now necessary, regardless of how the government tries to spin it away, because Labor has turned an inherited surplus into the 4 largest deficits in our history, and we're now staring down the barrel of the 5th substantial deficit in a row.
7:30 understands the government's mid-year outlook will say that the crisis in Europe has affected confidence, hiring intentions and employment, and that will see a multi-billion-dollar hit to revenue.
We are preparing our materials and forecasts for the mid-year fiscal and economic outlook, and given the uncertainty, given the hit to confidence, given all of the impacts of the global financial crisis, that will have an impact on revenues.
Making savings will test the government, but its return to surplus isn't just about economics, because it sees the European disease as a failure of politics, and it's determined not to follow suit. So the exercise will also test Tony Abbott. The government will find cuts. Will the opposition leaders support them, or just say no?
Political editor Chris Yeoman.